Welcome to StartUpHealth TV, where we celebrate the entrepreneurs and innovators who are transforming health. I'm Logan Plaster, and my guest today is Michael from Augmental Tech. I'm not going to butcher your last name. Tell me your last name.
Come on, you have to, one try.
One try.
Go for it.
Vanderlinde.
That's 6 out of 10. That was
Okay.
actually pretty impressive.
Vanderlinde?
Van der Linde.
Van der Linde.
Yeah.
Okay, Van der Linde. Is that why you also go by Fox?
Yep,
I've seen it on
it's
LinkedIn.
clearly much easier to remember.
Michael Fox Van der Linde.
7 out of 10.
7 out of 10. Okay, say it one more last time.
Van der Linde.
Van der Linde.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's
8?
8, 7.5.
Van der Linde. Okay. And you're here in the States from?
South Africa.
South Africa. Okay. And you are a co-founder of Augmental Tech. So just lay it out for us. Give us the pitch.
So Augmental Technologies is a companion app focused on parents that provides on-demand, personalized parent training, and that's tailored for parents of children diagnosed with ADHD, autism, anxiety, depression, and related conditions.
Okay. How'd you get into this?
So it's and this is the DNA shared by our entire team, is this innate just need to solve meaningful, or address at least meaningful problems.
Okay.
And I think all of us are quite aware of the youth mental health crisis that the world, not only the US, not only South Africa, is facing. And we have a strong belief that technology can play an important role in empowering parents as a conduit to supporting not only the child's mental health, but also the family mental well-being as a whole.
Tell us about the human toll of sort of not having the tools and the support system you need. What's life like for a family that's taking care of one of these kids, a neurodivergent kid, someone with one of these conditions? What's it like?
I mean, in short, if you want to use one word, and this is from, I think it's such a privilege to represent our community, it's overwhelmed, and in many instances it's feelings of hopelessness. To give you an example, very often as it pertains to parent training, which is the clinical intervention that our solution is based on, I can elaborate on that just now if you want to, accessing support or parent training, typically these parents can't afford it.
Okay.
Unfortunately, that's the reality of our system today. Or if you can afford it, you have to wait 6 months to a year to get the support. Now, in a family's life, 6 months might mean a whole school term, a year. And lastly as well, something that's very often taken for granted, but is convenience around when to access this.
Yeah.
So very often it can take one meltdown in a family situation, and that means the parent can't attend a parent training program.
Right.
So I mean, attrition rates in these programs are like above 50% because of this, and it's childcare as the main cause for to not be able to attend it. So it's a difficult and challenging road to roll. And the reality is, I mean, as irrespective if you have a neurotypical child or a child that's not diagnosed or struggling with mental health conditions, nobody's prepared to be a parent.
Yeah. Throw that on top and it's 100x more complicated. I've talked to other folks who are in this field, and they talk about how antiquated it is for parents to have like a binder of information about kind of what works for their kid and what doesn't. So, I see these families as really being sort of left behind, and technology like this is trying to address it. So talk to me about the actual product itself. What's the user experience?
Cool. So I think before I go into the user detail there, just the clinical approach behind what we do is parent training, and which is a fascinating area that's getting a lot of attention now, and it's based on the premise by equipping a parent with coping skills, so being able to manage their own mental well-being, but also equipping them with parenting strategies. There's quite a lot of evidence, and a growing body of evidence, that in effect supports the parent's mental well-being.
Okay.
Because inexplicably these things are linked.
Of course.
But also allows the parent, or equips the parents with behavioral strategies that supports the management of the child's complex behaviors.
Okay.
and also support the child's mental well-being. And that's why we've moved quite a bit to the idea of family mental well-being as a concept.
Interesting. Okay,
Yes.
give me an example of how that works. The kinds of tools you might be giving to the parents and family, and not just to the kids.
Yep. So as we use an example, so within our platform, the parent enters our platform, we actually ask them to tell us a little bit more about the areas where they as a family need support as a first layer, because we also know that being personalized is absolutely critical. So no family is the same, and we have to meet the family where they're at. So the second step would be that based on their preferences, we actually recommend video guides. That's our internal name for it. But essentially, it's short, bite-sized, which is based on the science of micro-learning videos that the parent can watch based on specific real-life topics. That immediately in that moment can equip them with skills that they can apply.
Give me an example.
So, for example, for a lot of our families who have a child, for example, diagnosed with autism and anxiety, going to the grocery store, something really simple, right, that all of us go through, can be quite a traumatic experience. There's quite a bit of change that happens, but there's actually quite a bit you can do to prepare your child for the event before going there. So we have a lot of our parents, they actually search that scenario in our library, and at that moment they can then actually get some tips on how to prepare and not have this event be a significant experience during the day.
You know what I find interesting about this content is that in our current media landscape, it feels like a lot of people are going to places like TikTok and Instagram Reels and YouTube Shorts to try to get snackable pieces of information. I know parenting experts, and so people they've been sort of forced to try to find good advice in these places where it's not validated, it's not organized, and so what I hear is that, this is it's an alternative to that. In the same way that instead of Googling your symptoms, that you might have a clinically validated, triage tool. So how do you see what you're creating as like a reaction to, or kind of a counterpoint to, the way people currently seek out those pieces of information?
That's an interesting thought, because we also realize that, and this is I think our team's also expertise, and this is the ability to really empathize and try and understand the community that we're supporting. So the parents that we work with don't have time for a 4-hour course.
No.
Typically, the parents that consume our content, they're looking at it while they're making food, waiting in the car. So all our content is literally
in the restroom.
In the restroom.
Wherever they can get the space.
Exactly. So literally, you'll see our content is tailored to be under 5 minutes max. Sometimes 3 minutes, 2 minutes, and it's and very scenario real life based.
Got it.
So it's not we had to also tone down the language used to not be clinical, which is quite tough, but it's it has to be. You have to meet families where they're at.
Okay, talk about your expansion into the United States, because you were born in Cape Town, but you are creating a U.S. beachhead. What are you doing, and what's the plan?
So, from how we got to the US actually, and this is core to everything we do. We launched the application with the intent from South Africa, made it available in different app stores, and completely organically, we got families from the US using the solution, giving us phenomenal feedback.
Interesting.
So it was a complete organic shift. And then, with the amazing work we do with you guys, with StartUpHealth, really gave us a bit of a springboard and another good reason to actually think about the US as a beachhead.
Okay.
So it's really, again, parent-led.
Okay. Parent-led from start to finish. So what's the plan? How are you rolling it out in the US?
So we've been doing, as a startup, we've been doing quite a bit of different experiments to try and understand what's the best way to actually create awareness around our solution. So some of the avenues, and because of the reality is that I think our community is quite distrusting, because of, unfortunately, there's a lot of unvalidated solutions out there that unfortunately does get a lot of airtime, like in front of parents. So we really try and work through partnerships with individuals, organizations that are trusted, that are mission aligned to ours, to actually amplify what they do.
Yeah.
So really, it's such a fun conversation always, because it's, as soon as you have the same mission, it's so easy, because it's like, well, what do you guys do well? What do we do well?
Yeah.
And what don't we do well? And how do we combine this to create a bigger impact? So we work with a few large American advocacy organizations,
Okay.
where we support their mission as well. We make their content available through our platform at key, because what we have that's unique is we know when and where the parents are on their journey.
Got it.
So then we present that. Yeah.
Any great user stories stick with you?
So many. I think one that's very close to heart, it's a South African family, and this mom is still very, very actively involved, giving us feedback. And this is where a family, they had quite a bit of trouble at school with a child, and quite a bit of conflict between the teacher and the parent. And I think the big feeling was also not being able to communicate or connect with her child. And by using Tracto, she was able to actually understand how her child needed to be communicated to, and how her child communicated with her.
Wow.
And this in turn as well allowed her to speak to the teacher in a new way, to essentially educate the teacher. So it's a whole ripple effect.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, that's why we do what we do.
Yeah. It's seemingly simple how to speak to somebody, and yet it unlocks basically a lifetime of relationship with them.
Absolutely. And the thing is, what we're realizing, and this is quite exciting for us in terms of scaling our impact, is that there's a clear connection as well between, like we mentioned earlier, between the child's mental well-being and the parents, but also affecting a working parent's ability to be productive at work.
Oh yeah.
And employers, we've just started having conversations here with some employers in the US, still very early days, but there is definitely thinking a much fast, actually moving quite fast at the moment. We're seeing 3 out of 4 employers in the US are thinking of actually adding family benefits.
Okay.
To this. And so we're doing quite a bit of thought leadership with payers and employers at the moment to educate them about how family well-being is connected at work.
It's so easy to think. I mean, as a parent, thinking about the amount of my brain that's thinking about my children during the day, if those challenges were multiplied by 10 by a mental health condition, it would be incredibly distracting and difficult to focus. So to have that support system, and not just the support, the logistical support, but also the emotional, like the idea that somebody's there, just this idea that you're not alone seems like it'd be very powerful.
Absolutely, and the other, I mean, thought leadership is a big part of what we need to do at the moment for parent training as a clinical modality.
Yeah.
Is and we I think there's a wave of awareness that's happening. I mean, we quite recently and I'm really excited about this because it's very much aligned with what we're doing. The American Association of Pediatrics has actually announced parent training as a first-line clinical intervention.
Interesting.
For ADHD and some behavior-related conditions. So there's a lot of work that we still need to do.
Yeah.
But digitizing the potential of parent training and making parents aware of the actual impact they can make by focusing on themselves. Not only for their own life, but on their child's life. Yeah.
It makes me think of the whole oxygen mask metaphor.
100%. Put it on your face.
If you're not in a good place, how can you be in a good place for your child?
Exactly.
Very interesting. Well, Michael, I appreciate you taking the time with me. It sounds like you guys are in the right place at the right time as this industry is shifting. I love that you're bringing your culture and the ethos of a South African company to the U.S., getting that diversity of thought in global collaborations. I think it's going to be an amazing year for you guys, and I'm excited to watch.
Awesome. Thanks for having us, and thanks
Michael.
for all your support.